All right, hello everybody. Welcome to our next lesson here. This is Theories of Personality, Psychoanalytic. This is for our unit or the unit Personality. So our objectives and standards to describe the elements of the psychoanalytic theory of personality and to analyze defense mechanisms and how they relate to psychoanalytic theory. And take a moment there to read over the standards if you would, please. And our desired result is what is the psychoanalytic approach to personality. So think about some of the views and discussions in terms of personality, in terms of this theory. Vocabulary. Unconscious is the part of the mind that contains material of which we are unaware, but strongly influences conscious processes and behaviors. ID is part of the unconscious personality that contains our needs, drives, instincts, and repressed material. Ego is part of the personality that is in touch with reality and strives to meet the demands of the ID and the superego in socially acceptable ways. And then superego is part of the personality that is the source of conscious and counteracts the socially undesirable impulses of the ID. And we'll go over these a little bit further on in the lesson here. A defense mechanism is a specific certain means by which the ego unconsciously protects itself against unpleasant impulses or circumstances. The collective unconscious is part of the mind that contains inherited instincts, urges, and memories common to all people. And the architect is the inherited idea based on the experience of one's ancestors, which shapes one's perception of the world. And our final vocab word here, inferiority complex, is a pattern of avoiding feelings of inadequacy rather than trying to overcome their source. So Sigmund Freud, talked about him a little bit before, previously in our class, but he believed that mistakes when we speak are not actually mistakes, but they have more meaning behind them. He also believed that our dreams have some unconscious meaning, even if we do not fully understand them. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, he was a neurologist working in Vienna, Austria, and he learned that through his patients' talks of their private lives, their dreams, fears, and desires, that personality can be impacted by things outside our conscious awareness. The first modern psychologists study that personality has a large unconscious or unaware component was Sigmund Freud. He believed that many of our experiences, especially those painful experiences, are not forgotten but stored away in the unconscious. We may not consciously recall these experiences, but they can influence our behavior nonetheless. So the unconscious modes and feelings we experience as children can have a large impact on us as adults, and we'll see this in a couple of pictures here, but the preconscious is between the conscious and the unconscious and is recalled with very little effort. It includes the thoughts and memories of recent events and recollection of friends or facts. So human personality was described by Freud as an energy that has two powerful instincts, life instinct and death instinct. So he theorized that all life moves towards death, which some of those shows up in the desire of destructiveness and aggression. However, Freud also saw life instincts as more important, such as pleasure-seeking or erotic urges. He came up with the structural concepts of personality by 1923, which included the ID, the ego, and the superego. So here's a better kind of example of this. So the ID, as you can see, like in this iceberg picture here, is below the conscious and the preconscious, and all the way down there, and the unconscious. Now the ID contains all our biological and instinctive behaviors, which operate in terms of pleasure principles. These are things that we seek pleasure for regardless of the consequences, such as food, water, or even hurting someone's feelings. And this is where most of our energy is stored when we are born, just as when you are a child or a baby. If a baby is playing with a toy or a rattle and another baby wants it, the other baby may steal it and take it out of the baby's hand because it's seeking that pleasure-seeking behavior, right? It doesn't, say, can I have it, or waits for the other baby to put it down. The baby will, or steal a bottle from another baby, or maybe a cookie or something like that. Even little kids sometimes will do this. They'll be fighting over a teddy bear, but if the child wants that teddy bear for that pleasure-seeking moment, it's going to steal it and take it from another child. And this is, again, this is our ID. This is, I want it now. I need to get it now. Now, our ego is the most conscious part of our personality, and this forms between the ages of 2 and 3. Ration and thoughtful personality process is involved in this reality principle. The ego looks for a way to find what the body is seeking. So, we might see that child, as a 2 or 3-year-old, we might know the child is playing with that teddy bear, so, or that rattle. So instead of just taking it, we may wait for that person to put it down, or we may ask if we can play with the teddy bear, or we may ask if we can have another piece of cookie or an ice cream cone or something like that. We don't just take it. We don't just, take it from someone or take it from something. We ask if we can do it. So we start to develop that in our personality. And our superego, you can kind of see, is kind of, above and both below the unconscious and conscious there. And this represents learning and incorporation of what you've learned from your primary caregiver or parent. Example, again, looking at that teddy bear or cookie example, if, we as a child pull that teddy bear away from, our brother or sister or another child, and the child starts crying, our parent might tell us, no, 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 you have to wait your turn, you have to ask, or, say, can I have that please, or, say please and thank you, all those different kind of manners and proper ways of behaving. No, we don't hit someone, no, we don't, steal that, no, we don't throw our bottle when we're angry, all those different things. So it's part of the personality that stops you from making poor decisions such as stealing or causing pain. And it's the source of conscious and high ideals. This is where your conscious is. Hey, I shouldn't steal that car. Hey, I'm not gonna, go rob that bank. Again, not saying you should, but you know what I mean? Like that's our part of conscious there, telling us what is right and wrong. Hey, that's not right. That's, I'm not supposed to do that. It's a moral principle. Now, the ID and the superego frequently come into conflict with each other because, yeah, we may, if we're really thirsty or hungry, we may want to, take that person's food, or we might want to take that person's water bottle, or we might want to, get something from that person. But our superego, or that moral part of us, tells us, hey, I can't do that. That's not right. I can't just take that guy's water bottle or that guy's hot dog because I'm hungry. Therefore, Freud stated that a person must be able to satisfy the demands of the ID, such as getting food or water, without offending the superego of, going something that's against your principles. So our ego part of our personality faces a difficult job. Sometimes, rather than face conflict, feelings of unworthiness or feelings, people deceive themselves to think nothing is wrong. And this distortion of reality can occur, which Freud called defense mechanisms. So they defend the ego from experiencing anxiety about failing in its task. So we're trying to protect our ego through these different defense mechanisms. Now, some defense mechanisms are needed for psychological well-being, such as dealing with stress or emotional crisis, until they solve the problem. But if a person uses defense mechanisms all the time, though, they will always avoid facing or solving the problems realistically. And we're going to go through a couple examples here. One of these is rationalization. This involves making up acceptable excuses for behaviors that cause us to feel anxious, such as maybe you don't do well on a test and you say, there were too many questions on the test and I couldn't finish in time and I couldn't focus the whole time, so that's why I didn't do well on the test. You're rationalizing why you did poorly. Repression. This is keeping certain painful memories or unacceptable thoughts and putting them in your unconscious so you don't try to remember them, such as if For example, a person, like we said, Wendy here was bitten by a dog as a child, so her friend asked her if she likes dogs, and Wendy says, they're okay. Wendy really doesn't say, oh, I was bitten, or I hate them, or, I'm terribly afraid of them. Wendy just goes, they're okay, and moves on to the next topic in the conversation. Says, hey, let's go get some ice cream, or let's go get some food. So she's ignoring that thought. Denial. Denial is refusing to accept the reality of something that makes you anxious, such as Samuel might have very little money, but he continues to spend on things like he does not need. Like maybe he bought a new pair of shoes a month ago, and now he wants another new pair of shoes that came out, but he really doesn't have the money to do it. So he's denying the fact that he doesn't have money. Projection. Projection is throwing or projecting inner feelings onto others instead of oneself. Maybe Mr. Khan is jealous of his neighbor's new pool, but claims that his new neighbors are simply jealous of him, and that's why they build a new pool. They put a pool up to try and, make themselves look better than me. But secretly, Mr. Khan is jealous of his neighbors. Okay, some more here. So reaction formation. This is used to replace an unacceptable feeling or urge with an opposite one, such as maybe pretending to not like someone that you have a crush on, such as not talking to them, or maybe, a lot of times like we see like maybe middle school kids will do this sometimes, or younger teenagers will, bump by someone in the hallway at their locker, kind of push them around a little bit because, and you might think they're being mean to them, but secretly they have a crush on them. Regression is going back to an earlier and less mature pattern of behavior. Cassandra is very stressed being away at college, so she sucks her thumb at night again. That's, something that's not mature for a college student to be doing at night. Displacement. This occurs when you cannot take out your anger on the source of your frustration, such as maybe an older sibling is mad at their parent because their parent said no more TV, so the younger sibling, comes in to watch TV, and the older sibling says, hey, don't touch the TV, I was watching that. Maybe they, unfortunately hit them or push them or shove them. So, obviously the child is not going to necessarily take it out on their parent, so they'll take it out on their younger sibling instead. And then sublimation is redirecting a forbidden desire into a socially acceptable desire, such as a person is not promoted for a position at work, so instead of becoming destructive at work and like maybe getting upset with their boss, they might apply for a job somewhere else. So they're not facing the situation head on. You might say, well, that doesn't sound so bad, but they're not facing the situation head on. They're using something else instead of dealing with the current conflict. They're using something else. So analyzing Freud's contribution. Recognition of forces that exist and are difficult in controlling are Freud's greatest contributions to understanding human life. He was also the first psychologist to claim that infancy and childhood are critical, that during those times a person's basic character structure is formed. He was also the first to demonstrate how personality develops in a person. However, some people have claimed that his claims are unscientific, but despite these claims, others have followed in his footsteps. One of these was Carl Jung. He was a former close associate of Sigmund Freud, but they both argued over views of psychoanalytic theory. Jung had two oppositions to Freud's theory. That he actually took a more positive view to human nature. He also believed in a personal unconscious like Freud and a collective unconscious. Now, the collective unconscious was where the urges, instincts, and memories were inherited by the entire human species, and Jung called them archetypes. Archetypes are present in every person. Some of these that they use are like the wise old man, or the trickster, or the caring woman, different types of personality traits that can be applied to every single person. He also studied archetypes in dreams, visions, poetry, folk stories, myths, paintings, and religions. He argued that archetypes influence our thoughts and feelings, such as, how much of the wise old man do you have in you, and how much of the trickster do you have in you? And these help build the foundations for our personality. ALFRED Adler, he was also similar to Carl Jung, was an associate of Sigmund Freud, but they also separate over views. He believed that the driving force in people's lives is a desire to overcome their feelings of inferiority. He believed that everyone struggles with inferiority, and that some people constantly struggle with an inferiority complex or views of weakness or inadequacy. The way that parents treat their children influences the style of life they choose. When we are children, we depend on our parents or older adults, and eventually we learn to do things that older people can do, such as walking or holding a spoon. But if a child is over-pampered, they may become self-centered. If they are neglected by their parents, they may lack confidence. So people should learn courage and self-reliance from their father, and feeling or generosity from their mother. So how you are raised impacts your personality. That was the view of Adler. C. Additional theories. Erich Fromm, 1900 to 1980. On the top right-hand side of your screen there, the pictures, his pictures on the far left-hand side, focused on the need to belong and the loneliness that freedom can bring. Karen Horney, or Karen Horney, I'm doing my best to pronounce her name there, 1885 to 1952, her picture is in the middle there, stressed the importance of basic anxiety, basic hostility, and a resentment of one's parents generally accompanies anxiety, believed that a child that is raised in a loving environment will not struggle with Freud's psychosexual partner, believe that a child that is raised in a loving environment will not struggle with Freud's psychosexual parent-child conflict. Eric Erikson, 1902 to 1994, his picture's on the far right-hand side there, accepted Freud's theory but also discussed 8 psychosocial stages. These stages help describe the importance of interacting with other people. So here they are here, and we've kind of looked at some of these earlier in the class this year. But take a moment just to kind of read these over. You can see the stage and the approximate age, the issue, such as trust versus mistrust, and then the description of the task. So I'll let you read over that for a minute or two. Okay. So I know this was a little longer lesson. I appreciate you sticking with it. But think about some of the things that Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung and Alfred Adler and some of the others talked about in terms of building personality. What do they say helps build our personality, and what are some of the things that develop in our personality? And that will help you answer this question. Okay? All right, well, I hope you have a good rest of your day or night, and talk to you soon.